Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement, presented by Chris McIntire, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning, which is so appreciated, Chris, because there is so much information out there. It seems like every source is on an extreme, one side or another, but I like how you balance the different opinions out there and do bring that common sense approach. What I feel is in savers and investors' best interest is making informed decisions, is understanding both sides, and that all financial investment and retirement options have some pros and cons that need to be weighed through carefully to make an informed decision about what is best for us. And we're going to be talking about that today, ladies and gentlemen, of course, with Chris McIntire, president, founder of McIntire Retirement Services, Northwestern Ohio's resource. And Chris, always a pleasure to have you here on the program. Thank you for being that resource.
Hey, buddy, good to be with you this weekend. Hope everybody's doing well.
We are on this side, Chris, so always good to see you. And today, again, going to be talking about pros and cons of what is a widely debated financial tool. But I think more and more, the government has certainly affirmed that they recognize the value in guaranteeing income for yourself. And I think that 2020, 2021, 2022, all successively record years for individuals in purchasing annuities. Why have these been so debated, and why have they become such a widely utilized financial option, Chris?
Yeah, well, let's take that the second one first, if you will, and why they are important and gaining more popularity and even being included into 401k plans now that the government improved that is the ability to have that lifetime income, because most people where they work now, especially in the private sector, do not get that monthly pension payment. They have to save all of that money. And, it's one thing being a saver or an investor versus an income planner. And so, an annuity is the only instrument that can guarantee you'll have an income for the rest of your life and maybe a spousal benefit as well. And, and then, to take that even a step further, there are many different types that are out there right now. And I think we're going to talk about that here on the show. And, when does it make sense to exchange one for another and that type of thing, Peter?
Yeah, well, Chris, I know that we've talked in recent weeks about how when the money changes direction, when the paycheck stops and we stop making contributions, start making withdrawals, if we are doing that from a volatile source or something that can lose value at the same time we need to create that income, that it can significantly impact the longevity, the trajectory, the lasting durability of our income. And so annuities offer a solution to remove that volatility and make that income more dependable and consistent.
Yeah, no question about it. And, you formulate that type of income with, like your Social Security payment. If you're married, maybe your spouse has a Social Security payment as well, and just the valuable resource that can be. And then, here in the state of Ohio, people that work for the government the state government or teachers, do not contribute into Social Security. So, if I've got a spouse that's a teacher and one that's under Social Security, well, if the one under Social Security passes away, the teaching spouse may not get any residual Social Security benefits from the spouse. So all of a sudden the income may have been cut in half, for example, and having an annuity as a hedge against that could certainly, maintain that standard of living of that guaranteed stream of income for as long as they're alive, and then you add that, into, an overall investment plan with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, and things along those lines, right? You don't put every last dollar into stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, just like you wouldn't put every last dollar into an annuity or any other instrument.
And Chris, for those watching on the podcast, I see your board behind you with all of the different investment options laid out and where they fall in the spectrum. Now, with those pros of the dependability and durability of income that an annuity can offer, again, each one of those options has pros and cons. What do we need to be aware of if we are making a consideration with an annuity that might be a drawback?
Yeah, and let's start at the 30,000-foot level. Social Security is the form of an annuity payment. Okay, kind of like an immediate annuity, we would call that in our world. Is you only get the monthly income, you don't have any access to the money you put into Social Security. Okay,
right.
And so, in the modern world that we live in today, if somebody's sitting with, let's say $1 million, just to use a nice round number, and they said, hey, I'm going to put $300,000 into an annuity that I can use as an income stream at some point in the future. Most people don't want to just turn that money over to the insurance company and the trade-off for a check, right? They may want to invest it, okay, let it grow for a number of years and then turn it on for income. And so there are insurance companies that would say, okay, hey, if you're going to do that, if you're going to make a deposit and take income in 3, 5, 7 years, for example, we'll increase that income, contractually guarantee you that we will increase that income payout the longer you leave that set. And, we'll even state in the contract what you can expect to receive in 3, 5, and 7 years. So, that's a nice planning tool, obviously, to have. Then you can take the balance of that money and invest it in a portfolio that's designed to, match your risk tolerance as well. So you've got that income aspect and you've also got a growth aspect. And I mean, in a lot of cases, you would think, boy, that's the best of both worlds. And, not every financial guru that's on CNBC is going to give that a stamp of approval because they want to talk about stocks and bonds because that's their business model. Our business model is, how do we help retirees not run out of money in retirement and give them a balanced risk approach and, without any sort of bias whatsoever.
But Chris, I mean, as much as we value the dependability of the next Social Security check showing up for us, or the next pension check showing up for us, how much confidence that adds to our freedom to spend. You mentioned it. You can't reach into Social Security and pull out extra in case of emergency. Once you take that Social Security, if you pass away, it does not transfer on to next generation beneficiaries, and there may even be a reduction for spouses because one person only gets one check. But do annuities that we purchase for that $300,000 deposit you gave the example on, is that quality the same there?
Oh, yeah, without question it is, Peter, because you have the flexibility of when do you want to turn it on for income, okay? And if you don't need it for income, maybe you just go in and you pull a piece out as you need it, so you have some of that flexibility.
So you do have the ability to access some of that money.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. So 2022, stocks went down in value, bonds went down in value. And if we had a client that says, look, I don't need any more income, but I need $15,000, and I don't want to take it out of my investments because I've lost value this year. So look, we can take it out of, the annuities that we use are safe. We use fixed annuities or fixed index annuities. Well, I'm just not a big fan of variable annuities. I think, and we can get into that, but they got layers of expenses and so on and so forth, and financial risk. So we like the safe side, fixed index annuities, and we can a lot of times just make a withdrawal to satisfy some cash flow needs, if you will. It doesn't always have to be a lifetime income, and that's the only settlement option by any means. Not in today's annuity space. Lots of flexibility out there.
But there's also some guidelines and limitations on that flexibility, correct?
Yeah, no question about it. So let's say you purchased a fixed annuity paying 4% interest as a guaranteed interest annuity, and you had to leave the money in there for 5 years before you can take all of the money out. Okay. Rule of thumb is you could take 10% out every year in year one, year 2, 3, 4, and then in year 5, you have the flexibility of, well, I'm going to leave it in there and I can take it out if I want to, or I'm going to shop around and find a better rate.
Okay. Well, again, pros and cons of every option. You just need to weigh them carefully, have a clear understanding, have an advisor that is helping to provide that information in a forthright manner. And ladies and gentlemen, those are all important factors in making any kind of financial decision and consideration. And Chris McIntire is your resource. If you would like to look at how to set up and structure the plan for retirement, if you are considering how to turn a finite amount of money in your lump sum retirement accounts, in your savings, into a sustainable, dependable income in retirement, map that out. Get the game plan for retirement that Chris McIntire puts together for his clients there at McIntire Retirement Services, looking at income, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy, a number of issues, the risks involved and exposed in your investment portfolio, the taxes that you may be liable for, strategies for how to minimize and control that, how to optimize streams of income like Social Security. All of those things are included. And to get started, an easy process, just pick up the phone right now and give a call. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, there may come a time where perhaps somebody has had a variable annuity or an older annuity that is just no longer serving the correct purposes. Maybe they were more about accumulation and deferral, and they now want to switch to turning on that stream of income. There are times where annuities are replaced or exchanged. This is a particular process that needs to be done very cautiously and with, again, the full disclosure and information, correct?
Yeah, and that's what's nice here in Ohio is we have a very, good Department of Insurance, and even the insurance companies have lots of what we call suitability guidelines. So if we replace an annuity with another one, that we've got to list out all of the attributes. What are the pluses and the minuses of making these exchanges? Because you got to be aware of what we call surrender charges, and is the growth potential on the new annuity better than the old one? And that's in today's interest rate environment, that's very popular. My old annuity was only guaranteeing 2.5%, and I can get 5 right now, for example. So you're seeing a lot more of that activity going on right now. And then if somebody has an annuity that was 10 years old and it's maturing, for example, it doesn't have any sort of surrender charge, they may be looking for a newer one that's got, higher growth potential, or even a nice income stream element as well that didn't exist 10 years ago, as an example.
And that reliability of retirement income, Chris, that's really the strong point, and what an annuity can provide that maybe no other investment option out there is as well suited to do.
Yeah, Peter, you're exactly right. And as the interest rates have risen here over the course of 2022 into 2023, insurance companies buy a lot of bonds, if you will, government bonds, and they're paying a lot more interest right now. So the payouts for income, the growth potential, is substantially better than it was 10 years ago, when interest rates on government bonds might have been 1.5% to 2.5%. And today they're 4 up towards 5%. You want to talk about giving the industry a lot more flexibility in the way that they can enhance their annuity products to the consumers to make them more attractive than the competitions. That's a very good situation that we're running into nowadays. Heck, we can, we're doing 2 to 5 year annuities every single day that, that was money that's been sitting in savings accounts, and people are, they're just wanting some short-term growth. And not everybody's looking for a lifetime income. Some folks just say, hey, what do you got in a 3-year space? I just don't want to pay any tax on the interest. So, I get a tax deferred annuity paying a competitive interest rate for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, for example. Or we get somebody that is on the other side of that and saying, hey, I've got a pension payout option available. The company's kind of closing the plan down. We have one of those up and coming. And here's your lump sum that we'll give you that you can roll over tax-free into an IRA. Then we might look at a longer term annuity that's got a nice income element, because it was a pension fund, and we want to make sure that the clients have the ability to create that lifetime income out of that same dollar amount, if you will.
Chris, because of those interest rate increases and the payout rates that have tracked along with it, I've heard it said that income is on sale right now, meaning if we look back over the last 30, 35 years in the financial world, they were following what had been known as the 4% rule, but even that had been called deeply into question on how much income you could create with a lump sum. For example, $1 million could create $40,000 a year of relatively dependable, sustainable cash flow. But what I've heard with income being on sale is what used to take that $1 million may now only take like 800,000 or 600,000 to create the same kind of cash flow due to these higher interest and payout rates. Are you finding that to be the case?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, most definitely, Peter. I'm glad you brought that up there. You were going right where my mind was at here is, if you use that old 4% rule, it takes a larger lump sum to create that. Okay. And so if we can carve a piece of that off and get a good quality income payment out of an annuity with a highly rated insurance carrier, okay, and maybe, we may even be able to increase that income over the course of their lifetimes, all of a sudden we've freed up all that other money that we needed to create the income. So, it's kind of like adding some icing on the cake. And in your example, you said, hey, maybe we can, what we used to need $1 million to do, we can do now with between $700,000 and $800,000. Man, that frees up $200,000 to $300,000 for, an investment portfolio, to get some additional growth out there. I mean, that's just, that's a good thing about the normalization of the interest rate cycle, I guess, if there's, to combat inflation. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there in one way, but I think a lot of folks are happy to be making money in CDs, money market accounts, fixed annuities, index annuities, and then also having the ability to have that much higher payout percentage like Peter referred to.
If you'd like to see how you can create that income at a discount, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to see how you can leverage dollars to create more income into and throughout retirement, now's a great time to shop for that, to look around, to structure that into a plan. Give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. So, Chris, as a word of caution on one side, when considering replacing any kind of an annuity, it may be a good time specifically to do so if you are looking for higher interest rates or higher cash flow and lifetime income.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very good time to begin and look at that process and evaluate exactly what are you looking at. And, there's a lot of good quality companies out there that are competing for your business. So, for them to compete for your business means they got to offer you more. And this is a very good time for that right now.
Well, again, if you'd like to take a look at what your dollars could produce for you for a livable income, a paycheck into and throughout retirement, pick up the phone and give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, we know that maintaining purchasing power has been a challenge over the last few years, and the income that we could count and rely on a few years ago just doesn't buy as much today. So are there opportunities to keep up with cost of living and inflation as we are setting up these guaranteed streams of lifetime income?
Yeah, there certainly is. We use many companies that offer the ability to have your income increase. That's one of the options you can choose. In many of the annuities that we use that are looking for income, right? And again, not all annuities are designed to pay you an income, but the ones that have these nice, robust payouts, okay, some of those will increase the income by the growth of the annuity that it has as well. So that gives you that kind of that inflation hedge. And like Peter said, we want to help you protect that purchasing power, so that, a dollar today is still going to buy, might take $1.20 down the road, that you have the ability to create that $1.20 without, risk to your lifestyle.
Well, again, if you would like to take a look, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, 2022, you've mentioned it was a very rough year in the market. Thankfully, to this point, 2023, we have seen some relative rebound from the volatility of 2022 and managed to sort of avoid the discussions that we heard at the beginning of the year of a coming recession. But nobody really knows when that next 10, 15, 25% market downturn and correction is going to come, and they do, and they will come. We will certainly live through some more economic cycles. In fact, on average, I think you've mentioned, Chris, on about every 5 to 7 years on average is what we see. So throughout a retirement of 25, 30 years, we'll probably see 4, 5, 6 of those times. Not everybody wants to take that roller coaster ride. And another important aspect, you've mentioned it, principal protection. Now, not every annuity offers this, and that's an important distinction when looking at the different types of annuities, correct?
Yes, you're exactly right. And so when the type that we use in our firm here is only the safe type, where you have no market loss potential there. So we use the fixed annuities, which again kind of competes against the CD, and looking for that more shorter term space where I want a couple of years of guaranteed interest. Okay? And then we use the fixed index annuities where you can link your performance to a stock market index and get higher. I'm use the word potential growth, because if the market goes down, you didn't get any growth. But 0 would be the worst case scenario. So if you take a 2022, for example, if you had an index mutual fund in the S&P 500, hey, it could have been down as much as 22, 25% at some point in their peak to trough. Your index annuity wouldn't have been down anything at all. Now, on the rebound side, your index mutual fund should make a heck of a lot more money because you're taking a heck of a lot more risk. But, your index annuity is going to step up in value year over year. And usually you're not going to give up the gains you've made previously. So, you have a nice provision called an annual lock-in. And for those that are very risk adverse or, risk adverse plus the need for income, those could certainly be worthy of a consideration. On the risk side of that would be more of the variable annuity, where you say, look, I want direct participation in stock and bond market investments, and I can handle the ups and downs of the market. I just want the guaranteed income, and I'm willing to pay a fee to get that. And, if that's your choice, I'm not your guy. We just think there's better ways of doing it. And we just, have not ever used the variable annuity aspect because of the inherent risk in investments, and then the fees and costs associated with that. We believe we can, accomplish those goals more on the safer side.
Not that you're opposed to risk, though, because you have access to both sides of the spectrum of the financial world, and in fact, many, many different tools available to you, Chris. It's just that, again, everyone has benefits and disadvantages and pros and cons, and you believe that certain tools work better to accomplish certain jobs.
Well, yeah, we're fee-based investment advisors with a fiduciary responsibility. So, we want to minimize costs and also keep that liquidity on the at-risk investment side of things. So, most annuities are going to have some sort of surrender charge schedule where you have to leave the money in there for a certain number of years. And if we're looking at an income element, where it's typically a 7 to a 10-year type annuity frame to do that. And on the fixed or the fixed index annuity, look, there's a surrender charge schedule that tells you exactly how much it is if you were going to cash out early. So that's voluntary. Okay. On the variable annuity side, if you lost 25% and you said, you know what, I want to try something different, this isn't getting it, it might cost you another 7% to get out of that. So, we just think there's cheaper ways to do that. And, obviously we want to justify our costs in what we do. And so that's one of the elements that is of consideration for our financial planning that we offer.
And again, Chris, that is one of the things that you do need to be aware of, that time commitment, whatever that period is. You may not have full liquidity of funds. In fact, I've heard annuities are so complicated, but the type that you are using with a set fixed interest rate for a set fixed period of time, or that offer the contractual guarantees for lifetime income, to me, those don't seem ultra complicated. I would compare it to a mutual funds prospectus and challenge anyone to fully explain everything that's in the mutual funds perspective. That seems complicated to me. A fixed rate for a fixed period, relatively uncomplicated. But the difference is that if you wanted to get out of the mutual fund, that is not that complicated. Generally, you can do so at the end of the next business day, whereas even with the set fixed interest rate kind of annuities, Chris, you have to understand what the caveats are for getting out of it as you are getting into it. That part can be a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, correct. And, and insurance companies, set things up to manage risk. And one of those risks is a run on the insurance company. So that's what surrender charges help do. They help keep those, that industry nice and stable. And that's typically why you don't see them in the headlines every day. You heard Silicon Valley Bank fail quickly. You didn't hear an insurance company fail, and they all buy government bonds because an insurance company hedges that risk. And that's all that they do. And Silicon Valley Bank, probably, had a interest rate hedge that they did not employ, and insurance companies do that.
Yeah, it's for the protection of all annuity holders, is that they put those costs in there. They build that in on the front side of the contract because, as you said, Chris, Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic Bank, we saw a handful of banks earlier this year. The big part of that is that banks are specifically intended to offer safety and liquidity, but they use the same underlying investments. When everybody came to cash out, those banks found themselves in a cash flow crunch, and they were not able to create the withdrawals that their depositors demanded. Whereas with insurance products, that's what that safeguard mechanism is in place. But again, something that if you are considering purchase, you need to be aware of going into it. Again, every tool, pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages, benefits that you need to understand the drawbacks to as well. And it's just finding the most appropriate tool for the job that you need done, whether that's growth, safety, liquidity, or income. And Chris McIntire can help you work through all of those, ladies and gentlemen, and make sure that your plan is aligned with your goals and your timeline for income, investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. And if you'd like to get your written plan, the game plan for retirement, pick up the phone and give McIntire Retirement Services a call. 800-868-1194. That is 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. I'm going to circle back, Chris. At the beginning of the show, you had mentioned how with the Secure Act, the government had put in place a mechanisms by which 401ks would or could potentially begin offering annuities and a lifetime income. Do you believe that it's likely still going to benefit savers and investors with 401ks to shop that around, or is the 401k likely going to be where that happens and it's as simple as that?
Yeah, I think probably the most of the investors right now, are thinking of their 401k as an investment, and then as they get closer toward retirement, then they may look into the commercial space, the outside independent space on, all right, if I want to get an annuity, I can certainly buy one on my own and look at what all there is to offer other than, maybe a specific company that negotiated with, the 401k provider. And that's why we like to be independent as well. And, and Peter, I wanted to add one thing here is that, every annuity or life insurance policy that comes out into the marketplace has gone through the State Department of Insurance for approval too. So they just don't create these things and throw them out into the marketplace. There is an approval process, and I would compliment Ohio's Department of Insurance on doing a fantastic job for not only insurance agents like myself, but also, people that purchase annuities and life insurance, myself included.
Chris, we are generally the consensus, the conventional wisdom seems to be that when you retire or leave a company, to take your money with you and roll over that 401k. And a lot of times that's for ongoing control, a wider variety of choices and options, even the ability to begin to manage the tax liability. So you think that having annuities now offered right within the 401k is probably not going to change that conventional wisdom significantly.
Yeah, I simply just don't think that way. I think most folks are, have that investment mindset. That's going to be a hard paradigm to change.
All right. Well, Chris, I know that on 401k statements, Sometimes they say your income in retirement will be this. And final thought for the program is that is not a certainty. That is not a guarantee. And relying on that number could be widely misleading. And in fact, Chris, a lot of times that actually sort of somehow includes and incorporates what they estimate your Social Security to be as well, correct?
Yeah, it sure does. And, I mean, I think they push to have 401k companies publish that type of information out there. And I would take it with a serious grain of salt.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you need to get a plan. Bottom line, there are a lot of tools out there, and a lot of people have access to a lot of tools, good tools, 401ks, the mutual funds, the investments with inside of 401ks, IRAs, investment and brokerage accounts, but bringing those together into a cohesive, comprehensive plan, actually a step that many people have not taken. And it's one of the reasons why we see such a common concern with, will my money last me as long as I need it to in retirement? So let's get that plan put together. It's that simple. And it's simple to get that process started. Just pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. Offices conveniently located across Northwestern Ohio. And that's their role. They are here to help and assist in formulating that plan, as they have done for so many proactive savers and investors, but still so many more need to have that plan in place. If that's you, ladies and gentlemen, or you like a review, an update, just kind of double checking things, pick up the phone, give McIntire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194, or you can visit online, McIntyreRetirementServices.com. Chris, always appreciate the perspective, the time that you provide in trying to make sure that people are informed and educated about their money and financial decisions.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter. Yep. I hope it's a good show for everybody today. Take care.
Tune into Chris McIntyre's full radio program and visit McIntyreRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.